Доброго вечора, українські радіаційні онкологи, медичні фізики. Слава Україні! Дуже дякуємо, що приєдналися до Research Methodology Course for Ukraine. Our topic today is conducting comprehensive literature search, and our amazing speaker is Kate Krause. She is a medical librarian at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, and she specializes in literature searching, evidence-based medicine, and she has over a decade of experience helping researchers write and publish, and is a co-author of over 30 systematic reviews. Congratulations, Kate. So your homework for after today's lecture would be to write a one-page literature search on your selected projects, and then I will speak about it at the end of the lecture. But Kate, thank you so much for preparing the lecture today for our Ukrainian colleagues. We are very eager to learn from you today on how to conduct comprehensive literature search and how to write and cite. The podium is yours. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Oh, I have to say, it makes me feel a little old that I have over a decade of experience. It's probably more like 2 decades. But let me share my screen real quick, and we will get started. All right, is that good?
Excellent.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm honored to be here. I am really happy to be talking about this topic. It is one of my favorite areas to speak on. We're basically going to be talking about 3 main topics. Where to search, meaning which databases to use to find articles and journals, how to search those databases, and I'll be showing you some tips and tricks of the trade so that you get better results, and how to write literature reviews. So let's jump right in. We don't have a lot of time. If I go too fast, please let me know. If my audio goes out, please let me know. And if you have any questions, I would love it if you put them in the chat box. All right, word search. This is not as easy as it should be, but it is what it is. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of different journals. And there is no one real good single place to find all of the articles in those journals. You have to search multiple places. So there are many, many different kinds of journal indexes. I usually call them just journal databases or databases. And most of them, unfortunately, are not free. They are actually extremely expensive. For most of these, you cannot even access them without paying a fee. So these are the databases that are, if you can possibly get a connection to them, they are excellent to search. There's many different ones. These are the ones that are the most highly used in the field of biomedical topics. PubMed is a little bit different than the rest because you actually can access that database for free. You just can't access the actual full text PDF of the actual articles. But there are some databases that are free. PubMed Central is a good one. It's a little confusing because it has a very similar name to PubMed, and it looks exactly the same as PubMed, but it is a completely different database. This database is, it doesn't have complete journals, it just has single articles from various different journals. And it is a database that was created by the United States government in order to make research available for the public and for the government for research that was conducted with funding from the United States government. So basically the idea was the United States government paid for this research to be done and they want to be able to see it. And they can't do that if it's in very expensive journals. So this is why this database was created about 10 years ago. It's a good one. If you search this database, you know everything in it is available for free. It's wonderful, we use it a lot, but if I were you, I would recommend instead searching Europe PubMed Central. because it includes everything that's in PubMed Central and a lot more. It has a pretty nice search interface, pretty easy to use and pretty easy to learn very quickly. There are a couple of other free indexes, ArchiveX, that's great for physics, but I would highly recommend the Europe PubMed Central. It's a really good one. There are also a few journal indexes that are sort of free, but not completely free, like PubMed. You can actually get some articles for free, but most of them are not free. They do have a way where you can narrow it down. You can say, I only want articles that are available for free. So that's pretty helpful. I'll show you that in a minute. The Cochrane Library is an excellent resource. You may not be familiar with this one, but it is really, really good. It's a little different. It doesn't have just journal articles in all sorts of different kinds. It has only systematic reviews and meta-analyses and controlled clinical studies. So though it has articles that contain those two things and nothing else. So you're not going to get observational studies, you're not going to get retrospective studies, you're only going to get controlled trials and systematic reviews. This should be available to anyone in Ukraine for free, and you should be able to access the articles in it for free. I obviously have not been able to test that out. So if somebody could test that out pretty quickly and let us know in the chat box, that would be very helpful. Or if somebody has experience using the Cochrane Library, just put that in the chat box as well. Let us know, because I can't test it. Google Scholar is great. I know everybody likes to start with Google or Google Scholar. But once again, it only has some free articles, the ones that are initially published as open access free articles. And you can't narrow your results to only showing you the articles that are free. So you have to scroll endlessly till you see all the ones that are free. Lilacs is also good. We use it a lot, especially because I'm in Texas. It's literature from Central and South America. So those are journal indexes that are free. There are some other ones. Well, let's see. Before we go on to other resources, these are the three main ones that I would recommend for you all. PubMed, narrow it down to the articles that are free. Europe PubMed Central, which will have different articles than PubMed, and the Cochrane Library. Okay, so I am curious. I would just like to know, what databases do you all use? Like, what is your primary way of finding articles? What have you used in the past? Okay, here we have our poll. Has everybody seen that, I hope? And here we go, people are answering, fantastic.
Yeah, so we see in the chat from Olena Marcenius that the Cochrane Library is available in Ukraine. Thank you.
Fantastic, that's good to know. It's a really good resource.
Yeah, so we have 93% participating today. Okay, I'm ending the poll and sharing the result. Most people just use Google, 76%, and PubMed, 55%.
Okay. I'm going to close the poll. So Google, oh, come on. Google is great. I use it all the time. But if you want to find articles, it's not very good for that. It's just going to bring up all sorts of websites. Some journal articles, sure, but just a lot of just unreliable websites, things that are written by people you don't even know who they are or what their expertise is. I know it's easy to use, but at least use Google Scholar instead, because that only gives you articles and journals, so it's a little bit better. But yeah, I hear you. Google is great. Okay, I think we have one more question. Here we go. Here is a test question. Which index contains all articles from all biomedical journals? Ooh, I see the answers are changing. It's like people are doubting their answers.
So we'll wait for at least 80% answering. Okay, so I am ending the poll and sharing result. 56% answered PubMed and 36% answered none of the above.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't explain well enough. PubMed is great. It has only 30,000 journals in it, though. I know that
Okay.
sounds like a lot, but it actually is not. It's a really small percentage of all the journals out there. There is no one single database that has all the journals out there. You have to search multiple sources, like PubMed and Europe PubMed Central, several different places, if you want to be really comprehensive. If you just want some articles, PubMed is fantastic. It's a primary resource. That's where a lot of people start off and rely on it most heavily. But it's not going to have every single thing. So if you want to find every article out there, you have to search multiple places.
So Kate, if you write like very comprehensive literature review, right, on certain topic, is it a norm to search various engines, various databases?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're doing a systematic review or a
Mm-hmm.
scoping review, something where one of your main purposes is to find all of the information that's available,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to search multiple databases.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I know it's time consuming, but if you want to be comprehensive, you need
Mm-hmm.
to search multiple places.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so aside from the journal indexes like PubMed and Google Scholar, there's some other places that you can search if you don't have access to a library that can actually subscribe to the journal articles and give you the full text. So some other sources are ResearchGate. These are all author sharing sites, and it's where authors will post their citations to their articles, and sometimes they post the actual articles, or sometimes they give you just their emails, and you can email the author and ask them for a copy of their article. That's done quite a lot. It's one of the ways that people get articles if they don't have access to a library, or if their library doesn't have a subscription to a particular journal. It's quite common. Academia is also pretty good. That has some things that are not in ResearchGate. And Fixture is interesting. It doesn't have journal articles so much, but it does have data and a lot of other types of information. So I thought I would just share that with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Aside from author sharing sites like ResearchGate, there are some other resources you should be familiar with. Research for Life. That's an organization that provides access to journal articles for countries and other places that don't have a really good infrastructure for libraries and things like that. So developing countries um, often use Research for Life. This is available in Ukraine, but it is unfortunately not available to individuals. It's only available to institutions like universities and hospitals. I, once again, have never had to use this because I work at a very large library that has access to journals. So if anybody has any input on using this, any experience, please put that in the chat box as well. I'm sure that would be helpful to other people. And I have to mention one other resource, Sci-Hub. Sci-Hub. Um, it's a fantastic resource. You can get almost any article you want for free, but it is completely illegal. There are a number of lawsuits against it. It has to keep changing its URL because it keeps getting taken down. It's completely against copyright, completely illegal. but it is there if you can't find an article through any other way. And that's all I can say about it. Um, if you have any input on that as well, I'm always interested in what you guys' experiences are. Okay, so a few other resources. If you're struggling to find an article that you really need for your literature review, association websites often post their journals articles. You have to be a member of that association in order to access them. I don't know specifically about Astra or Estra or any of the other associations that are in your field because I'm not a member. Um, but if any of you have any experience with this, please put that in the chat box. I'm sure that would be helpful for people as well. And one other suggestion, I know this is something that people often do when they don't have access to a lot of journal articles. They team up with other people at other institutions. There are so many articles nowadays that have 10, 20, 50, 100 authors even. It's very common now to have a multi-institution set of authors on one article. So that's something to keep in mind. You can make friends at other institutions like MD Anderson and work together as a team. And that way you increase your access to articles. Okay. If any, that's all of the resources I can suggest for you. If anybody has any other recommendations, things that I haven't mentioned, I would love to hear it. Put it in the chat box. Okay, we're going to move on to how to search these journal indexes, how to get really good results and not a whole bunch of irrelevant articles. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So how to search the databases. I'm going to show you Google Scholar and PubMed. The ideas, the tricks that I show you here are pretty applicable to any database. So, okay, Google Scholar, like Google, has a very simple interface. It's just one box. Some things you need to keep in mind. When you search Google Scholar, when you type in words, you have to be very careful about punctuation. And it's something we don't think about often. For example, if I search for intensity modulated radiation therapy and I use a hyphen, that's one of the ways that it is very commonly spelled. It retrieves 244,000 articles. But if I leave that hyphen out, it changes the results and I get a lot more. So be careful with the punctuation. A couple of other things to keep in mind. Here is one search technique that I highly recommend for everything. Put any phrases you have in quotation marks. That will keep those words together in that order. If I don't use the quotation marks, it'll search for the words I enter in, but they can be anywhere, not together. One word can be in the title, one word could be in the abstract, another word might be in the author's university affiliation. You never know where it's searching with Google Scholar. So use the quotation marks, that knocks down your results to a much smaller, more precise set of results. Another thing I recommend for all of the databases is to use the advanced search mode. For Google Scholar, it's a little bit difficult to find. You have to click on the little hamburger icon. I don't know, we call it that because it sort of looks like a hamburger. I'm not seeing it, but
It's a
that's what
menu
it's called.
icon.
Menu icon.
Yeah.
Yeah, menu icon, hamburger icon. It's all good. Different databases have different abilities in the advanced search mode. So you can use exact phrases. You can specify, I don't want any of these words. If an article has these words, I don't want it. You can add authors and dates. That's what Google Scholar offers, but other databases might offer you different options. Google Scholar it has some limited capabilities. For example, you can search by relevance and by date. That's how, I'm sorry, not searching by, you can sort your results by relevance or by date. Those are your only two options. It would be really nice if you could sort your options by the number of times they were cited. This is a nice thing. It shows you how many times they were cited, so you can see what the most important papers are. The papers that were cited the most obviously have the highest impact. But unfortunately for Google Scholar, you don't have any way to order your results by that. A couple other things about Google Scholar. It has a interesting little feature here where if you find an article that is perfect, it's exactly the kind of article that you're looking for, you can click on related articles. I find sometimes this works well, sometimes it does not work well. Google Scholar doesn't tell us the algorithm they're using. When you click on this, you have no idea how they're finding related articles. From what I see, I believe that they're just searching for words that appear in the title and seeing if there are any other articles that have similar words to the title. You can try it. It might help you. It might not. Okay, that's Google Scholar. Let's go to PubMed. It uses a lot of the same search techniques. So once again, if I search intensity modulated radiation therapy, it will search all those words, but they might not necessarily be together in that order. So when I add the quotation marks to it, you can see it narrows down the results significantly. So when you search these databases, Google Scholar or PubMed or any of the others, what exactly are you searching? Most people think that they're searching the actual articles. They're actually searching the entire article, but you're not at all. What you're searching really is just the record, just the listing in the database. So you're searching the title of the article, you're searching any of the words in the abstract. Those are the two main things that most of the databases search, and that's it. Sometimes there are keywords, sometimes there are subject headings you can use. It's different for every database, but this is the main thing that you are searching. So this is important because when you construct a search, you need to think about the possible words that can appear in the titles and abstracts. Sometimes that's a little different than how you would think of it when you're just thinking of your research topic. All right, so getting back to PubMed, if we use this phrase, it will search titles and abstracts, maybe a few other things, because PubMed is a little bit weird. It's a little bit of a clunky database. It was created by the government, so it's a little, I don't know what another word other than clunky would be. But there are some things that we can do to improve the results that it gives us. One is the quotation marks, and another one is that star symbol, the asterisk. When I put that at the end of a word, it will retrieve all of the variant word endings. So it'll get the singular and the plural and any other word endings. So this one might possibly get therapy, therapies, plural, therapeutic, I don't know, whatever variant word endings there are. This is really helpful because if you just use therapy singular, that's all it will retrieve. Databases are actually kind of stupid. They search most of the time exactly what you tell it to. It doesn't understand meaning. It only identifies words. Okay, so for intensity modulated radiation therapy, you have to think of any other possible ways to say this. What other words could appear in the titles or abstracts? This one is
IMRT,
good.
for example. IMRT.
Like IMRT is a good one. Also, this looks a little different. We have intensity modulated radiation therapy or intensity modulated radiotherapy.
Radiotherapy.
Yeah, so radiation therapy, radiotherapy, or IMRT. It's a good one. This will improve your search results a lot. So, what if we're interested in IMRT, but we only want it when it's used for lung cancer or some other topic? What if you have more than one topic? How do you search for that? We keep this part of the search and we add something else. All the terms for IMRT and lung cancer. So you have to use the parentheses to make it structure logically. If you don't put the parentheses in, the database will get kind of confused and just give you random results. I find some people get a little confused by this. So here is a visual representation. The ands, the ors, the not, those are called Boolean operators, which is just a fancy way to say and or not. The thing that trips people up is they think and will increase your results, but it doesn't. So if you do dogs and cats, you get fewer results than if you use dogs or cats. This probably seems apparent to all of you, but sometimes if you think about it too much, you sort of get tripped up. It's basically like first year algebra, A or B and C. This is the structure to use for most searches, and use those parentheses and the Boolean operators. And don't think about it too much, because if you do it naturally, you probably do it better than if you overthink it.
I think radiation oncologists and physicists are pretty good at Boolean operators because they use it quite a bit when they contour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. People who just do oncology at my institution are not quite as good at it as you guys. That's wonderful. Okay. A couple more things I want to talk about with PubMed. When you search your results, if you scroll down on the left, these are the various filters you can use to narrow your results. You can click on free full text, and that will limit your results to those that are open access, articles that were published to be freely available. So that's a nice feature if you don't have access to a library. And once again, here is just the basic search construction for most searches, A or B and XYZ. I find if you just, this example is pretty useful, just keep to that. If you want more, if you need more definitions and more detail, we've got this information below. But really, you just need this one example, and that's how you structure most of your searches in almost every single database. Okay, so I think your first class was on developing a PICO format for your research question. So how do you go from using your PICO formatted research question into a search string? It's not as apparent as you would think. So here's an example of a research question in PICOT's format. I don't know, I think you probably got into all the variations of PICO. This is PICO with a time element and a setting element. So bear with me for 1 minute. If you have, for example, a research is brachytherapy, your outcome that you're hoping to get is effectiveness, your time element is pre-surgical, and your setting is countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So most of the time when I work with people, we do not include every single PICO element, not in the search string. So if I were doing a search on this, here's a very basic search that I would do. I'm only going to use the first 3 elements. There's a lot of different reasons for this. Outcome, effectiveness, there's just 5,000 different ways to say that. So it's difficult to search. And if you're searching for sort of one outcome, that's sometimes not a good idea because you're only going to find that one particular outcome. There may be other outcomes that you didn't even know about, but you're not going to find them and you're not going to learn about them because you were just searching for a specific outcome. So it's really, really common that we leave off the outcome. Time elements are also just always difficult to search for. Same reason there's 5,000 different ways to say pre-surgery, pre-surgical, before surgery, et cetera, et cetera. And sometimes the time element may not even be mentioned in the title or abstract. Also, settings, places, it's very difficult to come up with a search string that lists every single country and every single city, maybe even the names of hospitals, to identify articles in a certain place. I have developed a search string for sub-Saharan Africa because I get requests for that particular area all the time. So yeah, I have a search string for it. It's about 200 words long, and it's not complete. There's never any way to think of every single term for a location. Okay.
We have a question in the chat, if I may. Are the
Yeah.
capital letters important for functions or and?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, let me get back. It used to be. So I have a habit of just typing all the Boolean operators in capital letters. Oh, I see. I messed up right here. I didn't do every single one. So it used to be necessary for PubMed. It no longer is theoretically,
Mhm.
um, but I still do it, and it may be necessary for other databases. So that is a habit that's good to get into, putting your Boolean operators in capital letters. It's hard to keep track. Databases change how they function. I haven't used every single database that you will use, so yeah, use capital letters for the Boolean operators. Excellent question.
Yeah, sounds good. And another question I would like to ask, if I may. Let's say there are lots of publications that are not actually full articles, but abstracts from proceedings from conferences, right? If
Oh,
we want to sort those out, not including a search, is there an easy way?
not in Google Scholar at all.
Okay.
In PubMed, PubMed doesn't actually include a lot of abstracts and conference
Mm-hmm.
proceedings.
Mm-hmm.
If you use something like Embase, that has a million conference abstracts and proceedings,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it is rather difficult to exclude all of them perfectly. Um, uh, oh, um, yeah, sorry, no good way to do that on most databases except for Embase and Medline. If you have access to that,
Yeah, I do.
I can send Dr. Kowalchuk a little search string that you can use, and she can share it with you. But it's not
Nice.
easy and it's not perfect.
Yeah, sounds
It's a
good. Thank you.
common problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, actually, next slide is relevant. There are many, many different types of studies. You can narrow your results in PubMed down to specific types of studies. A lot of times people only want randomized control trials. So you can narrow your results by clicking on that filter. You can also get specific phases of clinical trials. There's a lot of different types of studies. This is not exactly a complete list. You can see here that reviews is not on here because it's not really a type of study, it's a type of publication. So yeah, limitation of most databases. Okay. Any other questions about searching right now before I move on?
Looks like no.
Okay. So let's go on. Let's say you have searched PubMed, you've searched Google Scholar, you've searched Cochrane Library. What you want to do is gather all the citations from those various databases together in one place. And to do that, we use a reference manager. There's a lot of different reference managers out there. We use EndNote. It's fantastic, but it's very expensive. But there are a lot of free ones that are out there, like Zotero and Jabref and Mendeley. There are dozens and dozens more. So the two most popular ones I know here that people use most often are Zotero and Mendeley. They're both, we call it freemium. They have a free version, which is really, really good, but a little bit limited. So then if you want to, you can pay some money and get all of the other features that are available. I have seen so many reference manager softwares come and go. They all start off as free, they get a lot of users, and then they start charging. So I'm sure that this will eventually happen with Zotero and Mendeley as well, but for right now, they're free. So this is what basically they look like. When you gather all of your citations into a reference manager, you've got your list of citations. You can put them in different groups. If you click on one, then you can see the title and the abstract and the authors and all the other information that's available. So reference managers are great for two different things. They're good for keeping all your citations together in one place, and they're also good for when you actually write your article, for inserting citations and for changing the style formatting. So when we talk about citation styles, this is what we mean. There are thousands of different ones. These are some of the most popular ones, but Vancouver is the one that most biomedical journal articles use. It's also called the NLM style. There are a lot of different, slightly different iterations of it, but Vancouver basically, it has, let's see how to put this. If you compare it to, let's say, APA, you can see here that they put the year in parentheses. In Vancouver, they put it here next to the volume and issue. It's just tiny little details like that that will make you crazy and make you go blind. And there's just so many little tiny errors that are so easy to make. So use a reference manager software and let it make all of those citation style changes for you. You can see here in my Word document, it is connected to a lot of different citation styles. You can see here all the references. I can just, with the click of one button, change it from APA to Chicago, IEEE, etc. It's really helpful. There is a little bit of a learning curve to do this, but it is very worth it if you're going to write multiple papers. You have to sort of connect your Word document with your reference manager so that it can figure out how to make the changes that are necessary and pull that information from your reference manager. It's not that hard to do. The first time you figure it out, it might take a little while, but after you get it set up, it's very easy to use. Okay, so here's a little test question. What is a reference manager used for?
So while they are answering, I don't know, Kate, if Zotero is connected to PubMed, so you can pull the citations directly from PubMed, or no? I know
I don't know.
EndNote is, right? But
Yeah. I don't know about Zotero. That's one I don't use. I primarily use EndNote.
EndNote, okay.
So you can get into a reference manager like EndNote and search PubMed and it'll automatically appear. But we find a better way to do things is to search PubMed and then export from PubMed into your citation manager.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can do a lot more sophisticated searches, like using the parenthesis and multiple
Right.
Boolean operators, and then export into your reference manager. If you
Mhm.
do it the opposite way, you just don't have as much control.
Right, right. I usually search PubMed, and then when I find the article, I also go to EndNote, and then there's a PubMed window. I'll just put the title of the article, for example, and then it finds it quickly, and then it's already
Oh,
added. So I don't have to export.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's another way to do it. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Why? I'm just curious. Why don't you export from PubMed? Because it's pretty easy.
yeah. It's quick.
Does it
It's
just
just yeah,
take? Okay. Okay.
yeah. Different way of doing it. I'm
Hmm.
just wondering if Zotero has that PubMed add-in. I don't know.
I don't know. Does anybody use Zotero? If you do, please put it in the chat box.
Okay, so we have 83% answered, and I'm ending the poll and sharing results. So most people, 81% answered C.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. So reference managers like Zotero and Mendeley and EndNote do two main things. You store citations in there, and when you write your paper, you can format your references and create a bibliography. Uh, it's fantastic. Okay, great answers.
Yeah, people are saying that they use Zotero all the time, so that's
Oh,
great.
really? So
Yeah,
Zotero is the most popular. Okay, good to know. All right.
it's free, I guess.
For now. Okay. One more test question. Which citation style is commonly used in biomedical and life sciences? Okay, it looks like, have we gotten to 80%? I think so.
Yeah, so most people, 45% answered Vancouver. There's 40% said APA.
Yeah, yeah. The correct answer is Vancouver, but it is true. A lot of journals use the APA format. It's a little bit difficult. There are thousands of citation styles out there. A lot of journals have their own their own citation style just for articles in that journal. It's a little frustrating. Like, why couldn't you just use Vancouver? Like, so watch out for that. Check your journal's author instructions to see exactly what style they want you to write your article in. Okay. All right. Let's just talk about plagiarism real quickly. This is one of the reasons why we use reference manager software, and we are really, really careful about including citations and formatting them well to avoid plagiarism. I know everybody's familiar with plagiarism, copying word for word, paraphrasing and summarizing. There's a lot of different types of plagiarism. The first ones, everybody's familiar with, but there's a few ones that are a little bit newer and a little interesting. This is a term I was unfamiliar with, at least this name for it, mosaic plagiarism. That's when you copy just little snippets or phrases from other people's work and sort of mix it in together with your own language. So, half the sentence is yours, half of it might be somebody else's. And it's just a snippet. It's not even the whole sentence or a whole paragraph. That's still plagiarism. This one is mind-boggling to me, copying from the web. I don't know why so many people think this is okay. Usually younger people, they just think it's completely fine to copy chunks of information from the web and include it in their paper. I'm sure you all are much more familiar that this is plagiarism. One thing to keep in mind also, images. It's not just text that is plagiarism, but if you copy an image, for example, this copyright symbol here, and include it in your presentation, or if you copy somebody's figures or tables or part of them and include it in your paper without providing a complete citation, that's also plagiarism. And some interesting new ones, well, this one at least, using AI to write for you. Uh, AI is considered to be an author, and using AI to write for you is like stealing from another author. I love self-plagiarism. I think it's an interesting problem. A lot of people copy a paragraph that they used in a previous article that they wrote. It is their information, but it's basically like plagiarizing from another author because you no longer own that content. Once you get your article published in a journal, the journal publisher owns your article. It's not your article anymore. So keep that in mind. Bibliographic plagiarism, that's just when you copy references from somebody else's paper and stick them in your own to make it look like you read all of those articles. Not cool. Okay, plagiarism is pretty straightforward. Just make sure you provide citations. This is oftentimes where you'll see like a 10-page paper that has 5 pages of citations. It's crazy. Okay, so one other test question. Which of the following is considered to be plagiarism? Okay, I think we are finished.
Yeah, let's wait.
Hmm,
Let's wait maybe 1
10 more
minute.
seconds.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. So sharing the result. So most people said all of the above, 47%, and second choice was B, paraphrasing a source without crediting the original.
That's really interesting. Okay, so D is the correct answer. All of the above. I'm not quite sure why so many people would select B. And
I guess is the first one supposed to be quoting a source without proper citation or
oh my gosh, that's a typo. Yes. Oh,
yes,
I'm so
without.
glad
So
you
maybe
noticed that.
that's why maybe that's why.
Oh, we
Mhm.
confused you. I am so sorry.
Yeah, sorry. But
All
so
right,
I
so that's,
guess B or D. Yeah, it's okay.
yeah. All right, let's move on. Okay. Um, this is just one last thing about citations and reference management software. This is a really great article if you want a little bit better explanation. I've got the URL down here. It is a freely accessible open access article, and it's all about writing using citations and the purpose of it. It's very easy to read and not too long, so highly recommended. Okay, we're going to move on. What is our time? Oh my gosh. Okay. We're going to move on to how to write literature reviews. Once you've gotten all of your citations, you've got them in a reference management tool so you can put them into your article. Let's think about, let's consider a couple things about writing an actual literature review. There are a couple things that you should do before you even start. The first thing is to look and see if anybody else has already published a review on your topic. I know it sounds, uh, yeah, of course you would do that, but this is a step that so many people forget to do. So Here's one easy way to check and see if there are any reviews on your topic. Go to PubMed, type in your topic, and on the left-hand side, if you scroll down a little bit, you can select review. It's not perfect by any means. You're not going to retrieve all of the reviews, but it'll give you probably one of the best things you can do. One of the only things you can do. Okay, so make sure you don't want to start a whole lot of work when there's something already out there. Another thing that you might want to do before you even start is to, select the journal that you ideally want to publish in, and then look at their author instructions to see if they even accept literature reviews, because there are a lot of journals that don't even publish literature reviews. So make sure they accept reviews and see what their requirements for literature reviews. So for this is from the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the premier journals out there. They do accept reviews. You can see they have two different kinds of reviews. If you're writing a clinical practice review, that's a little bit different, but we'll just use this as an example. You can only have two authors. You have to have these things. You can only have up to 50 references. Some of them have maximum number of tables and figures. Every journal is different. So it's good to know this before you start writing, so you know what your end goal looks like. Author instructions for journals is a little bit difficult to find sometimes. They're often buried deep in their websites. So there is one tool I want to recommend. It's from the University of Toledo Library in the United States. This is just a website that has direct links to almost every single journal in the health sciences. It's a really great resource. We've got the URL down here. Basically, you just type in the name of the journal that you're interested in, click on the link, and you're right there in the author instructions. Very helpful tool. Okay, there is another thing that you want to think about before you even start your literature review. You need to decide which type of literature review you're writing. There are many, many, many different types. This is just a list of about 5 or 6, but there are a lot more different types of literature reviews. These are some of the most common. So the first one is probably what you're thinking about writing, especially if this is your first article. Just your basic literature review. It's also called a narrative review, a traditional review. That's a couple different names. But the purpose of your basic literature review is to provide a summary of the literature that's out there. You identify the relevant studies, the most important studies, and another purpose is to identify gaps in the literature. What hasn't been studied? What areas is there research that doesn't exist? What future research do we need to do? That's your basic literature review. These other types are not as common. You've got a historical review, which basically traces a topic over time. Critical reviews, a little more in-depth than a regular literature review. You sort of analyze it a lot more, often come up with a hypothesis by looking at the research that's out there. State-of-the-art reviews, I actually like these a lot. They're looking at the very most current developments on a particular topic and often theorizing about where we are going next. What are the probable future developments that we are seeing in the works right now? Systematic reviews, that's what I specialize in. This is very different than a regular literature review. The purpose is very different. The methodology is very different. Everything is very different. For a systematic review, you're actually trying to answer a specific question and provide recommendations. For example, does drug A work better than drug B in treating a particular type of cancer? And then you find the answer and you say, all right, everybody should use drug A and not drug B. Sounds simple, it's not. They are very time consuming. I also put scoping and mapping reviews here because these are becoming much more popular. I'm getting a lot of requests to work with people on these types of reviews. And basically, it's sort of looking at the research itself and seeing how much of it is out there. Where have the studies been done? Which types of studies have been done? So those are kind of interesting. All right, one more I want to mention is here's an example. It's a case report with a literature review. The purpose of this is not really to write a literature review. The primary purpose is to write a case report, and then you have a backup literature review as well in the article. I'm mentioning this because if you, I think a lot of you are experienced in writing articles, so this is really a type of article that a lot of people write for their first article. If you've never published anything before, this is what a lot of our fellows and our interns, our residents use this format to do their first article. It's a little less time consuming than a lot of other types of research, and it's a good way to learn the writing process, the publishing process, the peer review process. You might want to think about doing this if you're new to publishing. Okay, so running out of time, but it looks like we're perfect on track. When you actually start writing your literature review, this is the basic format. You have your introduction, which is about 10% of your article, usually 1 to 3 paragraphs. You have your main body, which is 80%, and your conclusion, which is also 10%, and usually just 1 to 3 paragraphs. The introduction usually discusses the background or why your research topic is relevant. It talks about the goal of your review, what you're trying to show, and it gives a little preview of what you have found. The main body, there are different ways to organize a literature review. The one problem we see a lot is that people, they kind of write like it's a high school research paper, and they just talk about each article one by one. So Article 1 talked about this, Article 2 talked about this. That's not really helpful for most people. The better way to organize your literature review is by, there's no good word for it, but theme. So you might want to group your articles together under different themes like main outcomes, and then another section on adverse events, and then another section on patient satisfaction, and then group your findings that way. I hope that makes sense. The conclusion is pretty apparent, summary of your findings, and discussing those gaps in the literature for future research that needs to be done. So all of this should be pretty evidential. This is not, there should be no opinion that comes into this. This is, we're trying to write about medical evidence, not opinions. All right, so let's see, what's our next question? I think this might be the last one. In a literature review, the term gap in knowledge refers to, hey, it looks like everybody is getting this one right. Oh, wait, I
Well,
spoke too soon.
yeah, you jinxed it.
I did.
Okay, we're almost there. A few more answers, please. Excellent. So I'm ending the poll. So majority answered, 91% actually answered C, and 9% answered A.
Okay. So yes, the correct answer is C. an area that lacks sufficient research or evidence. It's just that nobody has researched that particular area.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So we are at time and we are on our last slide. We've gone
Mhm.
over where to search for articles, the various different databases like PubMed and Google Scholar. We've talked about how to collect the citations and use a reference manager tool, and some tips and tricks on how to search and how to write a paper. So at this point, I think we are at the end of the presentation and ready for any questions that you all have or any input and
Excellent.
suggestions from you guys.
Excellent. Thank you so much for such a great presentation. I also learned a lot of things, especially free resources. We are very lucky here in US to have access
Yeah,
to these amazing resources, the databases, and I
yeah.
didn't know about all these free things. So that's really great. So I see a question in the chat from Dr. Marcenius. Dear Kate, thank you for the wonderful lecture. It was very, very, really needed. So it's a great feedback. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any questions, please put them in the chat, or you can also turn on your mic and you can ask the question. Kate, I have a question about when is it enough to stop? Let's say if you are really
Uh,
doing this comprehensive literature search, when do you know it's enough? You reviewed enough.
you never know. It's a really good question, especially if you're working on a systematic review or a
Right.
scoping and mapping review where the
Mm-hmm.
idea is to find everything, all of the evidence out there. It's difficult. We kind of have a rule of thumb. I do a lot of literature searches for our faculty here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we don't have a specific time limit. I can spend up to 40 hours on systematic reviews. It's very time consuming, but um, we search at least 3 different databases. This is just the way we have developed our
Mm-hmm.
practices. We
Mm-hmm.
search 3 different databases. We search Medline, which is PubMed,
Mm-hmm.
Embase, and Cochrane Library.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I usually search other databases, but if I start, if I spend half an hour and I don't come up with any new articles at all, then I figure I've found everything that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
That's just what we do. Yeah, there's no definite way to know that you found everything.
And
But but
how far back do you go? Do you um, throw away
yeah,
results that are too old? How do you
mm,
cut that off?
that's an excellent question. Um, so I'm still thinking of systematic reviews because that's what I do
Right.
most of the
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the date range is difficult. The best
Mm-hmm.
practice guidelines say that you should search all dates,
Mm-hmm.
but if you have a reason, you can narrow the date range so you don't come up with old, irrelevant articles. But you have to have a reason for that date range. For example, if you're doing a systematic review on a particular drug that was invented 10 years ago, there's no need to search before 10 years ago because that drug didn't exist. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't just decide, I'm only going to look at 5 years, the most recent 5 years. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't have a reason, then you may be missing relevant stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So each topic has a different time range. It just depends what your topic is.
Sounds good. So I see another comment. Thank you so much for wonderful presentation. Very interesting, very necessary information. Thank you. So for your homework, you would need to do a literature review on the topics that you've chosen, that you proposed, and you will be working as a team. Um, so you can search the review, and this would be later on can be used in your publication, in your paper. So most of it is typically used in the background and introduction, right, Kate, when they write their papers.
Yes.
and also in discussions, because you will be comparing your study and comparing to what was done before your study, right? So that's the two biggest points where you would insert your literature review. So that's great. Any other questions? So another comment, thank you so much for this useful information. Really nice lecture. We learned a lot. If there are no other questions, I think we can end. And our next lecture will be in the month. It would be given by Indra Das, and he will be talking about the quality assurance study. So that would be one of the examples of the study. But in the meantime, we are reviewing your proposals, and we will let you know, trying to match with the mentors. We'll let you know how we progress. So keep in touch, and I will also send you the homework assignment after this lecture. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Kate.
everybody. This was fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Good luck.
Bye. Bye-bye, everyone.